Welcome to the Alchemy of Ascension Season 2, where we are exploring our galactic origins and becoming multidimensional. I'm your host, Washayla Sananda, and today it is my great pleasure to share with you my friend, Suzanne Gerber. Welcome, Suzanne.
Well, it's such a pleasure to be here with Shayla. We're talking about two of my favorite subjects in the whole world, astrology and higher realms. And I love everything you do. So honestly, I couldn't be more excited.
Yeah, I'm so excited to have you too. And Suzanne is one of the people, she's not just an online friend. We actually live in the same area. So we are in-person friends. We actually get together. So that's a lot of fun. And so Suzanne is an astrologer. She's my astrologer and the astrologer for many, many people. And let me just read a little bit about her background so you can get to know a little more about her work before we jump into the questions. Intuitive astrologer, energy healer, and spiritual life coach Suzanne Gerber has been a professional astrologer consultant for more than 30 years. Her astrological focus is helping people tap into their spiritual calling to live the most fulfilling life. By working with your birth chart and tuning into your energy field, she channels remarkably accurate information about work, love, relationships, money, home, travel, health, life purpose, karma, and more. In her healing practice, Suzanne calls on her training as a shamanic practitioner and Reiki energy worker to cleanse and rebalance your chakras, remove energetic blocks, and perform traditional shamanic healings, including soul retrieval and cord cutting. So that is a little bit about what Suzanne is about. I'd love to just kind of jump right in. And so you have a long history of doing charts, 30 years, I think you said. And I know that whenever you're with Suzanne, she's going to pull your chart at some point. Like you can't just go have dinner or something and, it's just always happening. So let's start here. Like what can a chart tell you about a person? What can a chart reveal?
I think it's more like, what does it not reveal? Everything is there in a chart. It's like a hologram. It's just like the whole picture of a human being. And it's just, what is it that you're looking for? And what are you as an astrologer kind of sensitized to? Because there's rules, there's things have meaning, things have symbolism, and there really are, there's like very long, lineages of how to interpret this stuff. But it's not going to mean the same thing for everybody. And it's not going to present the same for everybody. And our chart at 20 is not the same as our chart at 50 because we're not the same person. But it's really all there. And a lot of people, well, frankly, everybody wants to know about their love life or their partnership or their career, and their career, money. We're human beings. This is what we want to know about. But I have to tell you, Shayla, it's been so fascinating to me. I've been doing charts since like the mid 80s. And over the last maybe 5 years, more and more people really want to talk about their soul and their soul purpose, really in equal measure with, tell me if I'm going to meet somebody, am I going to, move to this country? What is my soul's purpose? And I think that's so encouraging because it isn't just people looking at the plot level. They really understand that they are souls, they are spiritual beings having a physical existence, and they're very interested in it. And astrology right now is having a moment. I think that's fair to say. So is Ascension. And I love how they're coming together because people are realizing, I don't want to just use astrology for fortune telling. And so what I love to do, and of course we do that, everybody wants to know that. But in addition to that, we really look at how is this person, what might their soul purpose be? And then what do we do about that? How do we help them step into it? Because especially these days, not everybody has the ways and the means to just fulfill their life purpose. So I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, it does. And it seems like everybody's, definitely looking for that higher path of connection and that really deeper purpose in life. It's not just about the 9 to 5 and and the ABC of life. It's people want to go deep, people want to know more. And that is something that I've really enjoyed when I have had a reading with you. It's so comprehensive, and it seems to touch every different aspect of life. And so, let me ask you this. Can an astrological chart evolve as a person evolves? Like, let's say before I started my spiritual path and I had a reading, would it be different than, let's say, after 30 years of my spiritual practice? Would you get a different reading? Can you see that in the stars?
It's a great question, and there's kind of two ways to answer it. One is it really depends on the sensitivity of the person reading your chart, and sort of, hate to say this, I don't want it to sound like elitist or anything, but it also depends on what level of awareness the astrologer's on. If the astrologer is, just like a cognitive behavioral therapist and thinks in terms of, well, do this differently and do this differently, or they're more of a, kind of a linear thinker, they might not see a difference. They might. Mm-hmm. But the other thing is, where we are generationally changes us too. So we all have, let's say, I'll use me. I'm a Libra with a moon in Virgo with a Taurus rising, okay? And so as the planets in the sky hit, kind of make an angle to my main planets, they're going to change me in certain ways. I'll have opportunities for change. That's just me. But then generationally, no matter when your birthday is, no matter what your rising sign is, there are going to be certain planetary cycles that are going to hit all of us, every single person. Every 12 years, Jupiter, the planet of growth and expansion and education and philosophy, is going to return to its natal spot. At 29, the planet Saturn, which is our great teacher and the master of time and karma, returns to his natal position. These are portals of opportunity, little magic moments in time where you have a crossroads. People feel it. And a lot of times in the moment or in hindsight, they'll say, if only I had not broken up with that person or stayed with that job or moved to that country. They kind of see how things would have played out differently. So there's another really, really big cycle that so many people relate to, and that's the time from 38 to 44, where all of the outer planets, the slow-moving planets, form relationships to themselves in a person's birth chart. These are major activating moments. This is like when it's kind of really literally when the stars align, when this planet squares itself, you will have a philosophical or an existential crisis. Suddenly the old systems in your life just aren't fulfilling anymore. And you have an opportunity to continue along the same path or say, it's scary and I might lose, but it's the only way I'm going to grow. And you jump up to that level. And so when we look at a chart, the first thing I do, I look at the chart, but I look at how old is that person? Has she had her Saturn return, her first Saturn return? Has she had her Chiron return age 50, when we start to really step into our life's path? So we want to look at all these things at the same time. And then after we do all the analysis, we tune into our intuition. So to me, the same people that I might read for every 6 months, I'll look at their chart. They'll have made a major life change. And I'll say, I don't know how this is possible. I'm seeing your chart completely differently. So it's sort of the energy, the frequency that they're sending out and what I'm picking up. And yes, absolutely, you can see a difference.
That's really cool. And I know you practice shamanism and you're intuitive. So those things I'm sure make a huge difference to, like for instance, when I was in my early 20s, I got that book, The Only Astrology Book You'll Ever Need, where you can look up your charts and all this stuff. And I had so much fun doing that and learning about charts. That was like my introduction into astrology. but you know, I didn't have any real, I didn't have a teacher. I just had the book, and I didn't have any experience. So I was probably reading at the most basic level, and I didn't even know about daylight saving time. So I had my own chart wrong. I had my ascendant as Aries, not Pisces, which, you know, didn't make.
It would be a completely different you. You would know Pisces rising is not this.
Yeah, so when I learned about that years later, I had a professional do my chart, and I'm like, what? What's why Pisces? And she's like, you know, you were born during daylight saving time or whatever. And like, I didn't know that was a thing. So, you know, there's certainly different levels to read at. And when you have a professional do it, you get a lot more information than when you look it up yourself, or just type it in and get the general, you know, readout from the computer, which I know is out there too. So I love that, you know, and I've had that experience with you, because I've had you read my chart more than once, and I've certainly taken some I don't know, pivots, I guess, in my world over the last several years, and you've been able to kind of read into that and help me see where I'm going and what's coming and what, you know, where I'm at, really, and that's helpful. So thank you for clarifying that, because I think your practitioner does make a huge difference. Like any energetic work or language, astrology is a language.
I want to comment on something you just said there, if I can, with Shayla.
Yeah,
You
please.
make
Yes.
a great point, and you just made it tangentially, but that's another part of the astrologer's role. We're not just readers. I mean, we can read, you know, like card readers read,
Yeah.
palmists read, and they do amazing, you know, the good ones do amazing divination work. But part of what I think what makes an astrologer's role a little different is there's a little bit of coaching or therapy or cheerleading, you know, hand holding, because we're seeing somebody's essence so clearly and so vulnerably. Like I like to say that we don't read your chart, we read your soul. And we come in with such a sense of humility and emptiness. We have to come in, and this is the shamanic training. We come in with curiosity. We don't come in with answers. You're this, you're going to do this, you're going to do that. Because how do we know? You don't even know. How could we know? But what we can do is we look at it with you, and we see things like, this is a very exciting, powerful thing you have in your chart here. It's very strong intuitive gifts, very strong connection to the spirit world. And I'll often say to people, what's your spiritual practice? And they either have one or they don't. And so part of what we do is we will encourage where we see strength and potential. And then when we see blocks, we'll talk to people and we'll say, so how do you experience this? I don't tell people what it is for them. How would I know? I get a sense of there was maybe a volatile family, early family thing. Maybe they weren't seen by a certain parent. They didn't get their needs met. So how do they play that out? And how might that be blocking them to reach their highest potentials? And their highest potentials are not something that I line up for them. It's something that we explore together, because people know what they want. Even when they say they don't, they do.
Yeah. I get that. Thank you for clarifying that. So here's one that's really relevant to the content of this show. Can a chart show a person's potential for ascension, for raising their frequency? Can you read that by looking at a chart? And do some people have more likeliness to be spiritually, or to seek spiritual evolvement than others?
You mean, for instance, a Cancer sun with a Pisces ascendant like you? Yes, absolutely. Now, here's the thing. This also gets into the we're not God and we don't know. Sometimes you see people's charts and you're like, you are a mystic. But they might have a fear of it. They might have, this happens to me a lot. I meet people and I go, you could be doing what I do. I should be going to you for readings. And often they'll say things like, you know, I could always see things when I was little. I would have prophetic dreams. I knew when someone was going to get sick. I just knew things. I'm like, that's amazing, because to you and I, that sounds like so cool, right? Like, I wish I had that. And then they go, but it was really scary, or I had this thing and then my grandmother died, or then the dark, like scary voices would come in. So some people just shut it off. You know, that's common. And with those people, we really want to help them find, well, where their fear might not be realistic and it might not be appropriate for now. You know, how certain things might have wired together, you know, fired together and wired together in their brain, but they're not true today. And it really is a great skill. Other people have just said, yeah, I don't even know what it means to be spiritual. But you see, like, they have a moon in Pisces, or they have a moon in Scorpio, or the moon in the Scorpio or Pisces houses of the chart, which represent that same longing and ability. So sometimes you don't know if it's a desire or it's already there. So what we want to do is we want to talk to people. Well, how do you feel about that? Does that happen? Would you like more? Would you like to go beyond the physical? And so, again, getting back to your actual question, there's certain indications, and they have to do with Pisces is a biggie. You know, it just really is. That's why I laughed when you said you thought you were an Aries rising. Pisces is kind of like the bullseye of a target. Like uninterrupted Pisces energy, well-supported Pisces energy is immediate, direct ability to commune with higher realms. It's the realm of downloads, of mysticism, of intuition, of psychicism, of merging, of just like no boundaries, just like, you know, going into all that is. And when they have it strong and unfettered, you know, it's kind of a no miss. Now, Pisces, we look at a lot of things when we put a chart together. It isn't just your sun sign. We look at the houses, which are associated with the signs, also the planets. Different planets rule different signs, and they're actually what give the signs their characteristics. Pisces, the modern ruler of Pisces is Neptune. Neptune is really the character responsible for this kind of connection. So when people have very, very prominent Neptunes in their chart, for example, if it's right on the ascendant, right on their rising sign, if it was rising in the sky in the actual constellation at the time they were born, these people just kind of have like a direct line. Now, whether or not they know how to use it, that's life, and that's spiritual development. But that's a very big, prominent key. Then we want to look at their moon. People with a moon in a water sign, and the water signs are Cancer, Scorpio, and Pisces, or the houses associated with those signs, the 4th, the 8th, and the 12th. Those people are a little more sensitive. They're not as guarded. They're more vulnerable. They're more open, and things, they can pick things up more. Now, if the moon and the Neptune are connected, well, that's like a double bullseye. And then if the moon and the Neptune are connected in those houses, absolutely. And then we start to look at other things that support that story. And then we look at things that might block it, like, oh, they've got Saturn there. The Saturn is very rational and very practical, and it's very, you know, structured, and it's very three-dimensionally oriented. So they might have that ability, but they're like, I don't think it's right, or I don't trust it, or they might have been raised in a fundamental religion, Saturn, where they say, this is wrong, I need to only go to God in the way I was taught. So there's things that support it, there's things that block it. And when we see a preponderance of planets in those houses, especially the 8th, which is the Scorpio house, and the 12th, which is the Pisces house, you see these charts and you're like, this person could just like go right into a trance. Edgar Cayce, you know, the great sleeping prophet, right? The one who would just like pull down healing treatments for people in a trance state. 8th house Pisces star group, stellium. So that's like a classic. You look at that chart and you're like, okay, this is a mystic. So, and there's a million other little things, but those are some of the indications. Also, and we're going to talk about this later, I know, the nodes of the moon which are kind of complicated for people because they're not planets. You can't use your night sky app and look up at the sky and find the nodes of the moon. They're not planets, they're not physical entities. They're intersection points of the moon's orbit around the Earth and the Earth's orbit around the sun as the sun tilts on its axis throughout the year. So it's ever changing. And the nodes of the moon, so where your sun is your ego and your self-expression, your desires, your personality, and the moon is, you know, your inner life and your desires, and they also represent people, but that's a little more complicated. The nodes don't have any of that. The nodes are pure karma. They represent nothing else. So when we look at the nodes, they just tell such a big story about, so there's two of them and they're 180 degrees apart. They're opposite. So the south node, sometimes people might have heard of it as the dragon's tail. That's the karma. This is oversimplifying it. It's the karma we've come in with. It's what we've done it well. And it's, you know, it's like a security blanket. It's what we fall back on when we're afraid to move forward. It's like, yeah, I did that. I'm really good at that. I'm a good leader. I'm a good business person. I'm a good mom. I'm a good whatever. I'm going to stick with that. But the north node, the opposite, you know, kind of like the compass point is the reason we call it the true north node. True north is where we're intended to be headed. It's our soul's purpose. It's what we've come in to do. And when people are absolutely clueless, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I really don't know. My kids just went to college. I'm divorcing my partner and I don't know what to do with my life. There's a nodal thing going on. There's a Chiron thing going on, because this isn't just plot stuff. This is soul. This is the soul. Kind of the whispers have been getting louder and louder, and now they're undeniable. So this is another fascinating way to see where somebody is in their evolution.
Yeah, what you're describing sounds like a midlife crisis. So let's just go there. Talk about what that's all about.
Well, it depends on what you mean by midlife. There are a few different, if you have children young, they're going to leave the house earlier. And in theory, I mean, maybe not during COVID, maybe not when the economy is not chugging along, but you know, kind of normally. Kids go away to school and they might come back, but then they leave. But you're still an empty nester. And so depending on, again, how old you were when you had kids, or whatever happens with your partnership, whether you stayed in it, whether you remarried, whether you stayed in it and you've just gone, you know, in completely different directions. Because even if you're off by 1 degree, over time, that 1 degree is going to become 90 degrees, 180 degrees apart. And, but you're left with this, in this place of, I've been always doing everything for everybody else, which is now I know we're talking to men too, but this is a very female kind of thing, that we tend to accommodate other people, whether at work, with our kids, or our partner. But there comes a point, and it could be between that 38 and 44 span that I was talking about. It could be during the Chiron return, which is possibly the most common. That's age 50. It could be the second Saturn return at age 58. Okay. And then also in the middle of all that, from about 54 to 55, there's another big deal, generational transit that we're all going to go through regardless of our sun, moon, Venus positions, which are important, but I'm talking generationally now. It's around 54, 55, when those nodes of the moon that I was just talking about, they return. I'm going to get just a little geeky here, and I'm going to tell you that they return every 18.6 years. So at 37.2, they're going to return again, and then at 54, 55. Now at age 18.6, well, look at that. That's when people tend to go away to college, right? Or if they're not on an academic track, they get work, and some people get married at that age. But it's definitely that first break, right, from the family of origin. And that's not universal, but there's something kind of, most of us do that. And then at 36, many people who are, want to get married and want to have kids, especially women, it's like, oh my God, I'm 36, I'm 37, I'm 38. We really have this urgency about wanting to have a family. And then the notable thing at 54, by then most people will have at least sent their firstborn off into the world. And so the nodes are about our karmic journey. This isn't just where do I live, and what is my work, but it's like, why am I here? There's more to life than making school lunches and, being a soccer mom and stuff like that. And there's this real, each time that it comes around, I think it becomes a little stronger. And there's this little bit more of a voice saying, and what about you? And when do you get to do you? And so each one of these cycles, if we're paying attention, and this is the path we seek, pulls us just a little bit more, and we get a little more support, and things start to conspire in the universe to nudge us out. So those are some of the cycles.
I love that. And, it's really interesting to think about. I mean, I'm sure it's something you've thought about ever since you became an astrologer, but how all of these cycles in our lives that we just take for granted, you come of age, you go off and go to college or make your own living, you become an empty nester as an adult, as a parent, you go through your midlife crisis. All these things have astrological origins based on our birth chart. So, it's just a kind of a different way to look at it. And then if you have that information, you can go to your astrologer and say, what's happening in my life? Why do I feel like this? Can you help me out? What's coming, and get a little more perspective. It's really about getting more information, broadening your perspective, and having a deeper understanding of why life is happening the way it is for you. I
love what you said. This is part of what my spiritual and shamanic training how it's taught me to look at a chart. It's not so much what's going on. I'm not as interested in that. I mean, of course I am, but that's a story, right? And a story isn't the essence. A story is just like how we dress things up. In fact, a story can keep us from getting from the truth of what is. So I'm less interested in the what than the why. And not just the why, but what can I do about that? Even if it's a challenge, how can I use this for my growth?
Wow, yeah. Yeah, and that's way more powerful than tell my fortune or tell me, what's going to happen. Because we can use that information to grow and evolve. And I think that's the journey that we're really on. And that's why we want to know what's going to happen.
People make that leap from tell me what's going to happen to what do you see and how can I use my talents to best take advantage of the situation? When people think like that, those are the people I like to work with.
Yeah, I love that. So you could go in with the question, what are the stars supporting me in, or what is my alignment, my astrological alignment supporting me in right now, and what is it making it harder for me to do? And I guess that is really how we can maximize our energy and maximize our chart and our reading to get understanding of, okay, what are we up against and what are we working with, and how can we make that, use that energy to the best of our abilities.
And another thing very related to that I do like about astrology as a quote unquote divination tool. And this is where even the best psychics and readers and mediums will say, yeah, I'm really bad with timing. I mean, the best of them really can't do time. They go, I'm getting a 9. They don't know if that's 9 days, 9 hours. And they freely admit that because in that realm, it's very fuzzy for them because they're really going into another dimension. But with astrology, we see the transit of the planet. And we say, for instance, and I've been saying this a lot this year, all year, every day this year, I've been saying to people, it's the Saturn, Jupiter, Pluto. They're moving through Capricorn. This is what a lot of people associate with what's happening in 2020. not necessarily the pandemic, but all of the chaos and the collapsing, the toppling of the old systems. This is Capricorn. Capricorn's old guard. It's tradition, it's structure, it's patriarchal, it's conservative. And I'm not expressing any political views here. I just mean conservative holding on what exists before. I'm speaking just literally. It's not about change and transformation. It's about hanging on to what you've got. And when we look around the world and we see education and governance and, you know, health care, food supply, you name it, we see those systems shifting. And we look at the planets that haven't been together in Capricorn in 500 years. I mean, this is a super rare thing. And it's associated with this kind of shift. Now, we're not here to, that's called mundane astrology, the astrology that rules worldly events. But when we see it in people's charts, and we see people that have very important planets or house cusps or points that are getting hit by things like this, we say, wow, you've come in to work on this issue in a really big way. I mean, you clear this or you take advantage of this, your soul is just gonna like bump up to a whole nother level, but you've really taken on a big challenge. And people go, well, okay, how much longer? And you can see that the planets are, those 3 planets are retrograde right now while we're having this interview. And they probably will be, or they'll just be coming out of it when this airs. And we can say to people, well, here's where you're probably going to feel it the most acutely. And what that helps them do is just grin and bear it. Okay, I can get through it. You say, try to write it out. Don't do anything rash now. And then the planets will turn around, or they'll just move on, because even if they're not retrograding planets, the beauty of it is they just keep moving on. So you see that you have these windows of opportunity. And this can really help people either endure it, or let's say it's something very exciting like a Jupiter transit that's going to expand their world and grow their world. It could be a money-making opportunity. It could be time to get involved with a spiritual group. It's really big and it's really exciting, and it only comes around every 12 years. And someone's on the fence. You say, don't wait. I mean, if you can do it, do it. And they're like, well, you know, the usual excuses, I can't afford it. I don't have the time. You go, you kind of can't not afford to right now. And it really helps people when they're on the fence, because I think people know what they want. They just can get ambivalent and stuck around the timing. And this is where it's just amazing to be able to see exact dates.
Yeah, that's helpful. You touched a little bit on, you know, what's going on right now. Can we dig into that a little bit more? Are we allowed to go there? Astrologically, I know a lot of people are probably thinking, when are we going to be done with this? Because this whole COVID thing is not much fun. And yet it is the, you know, the crumbling of the way things have been, and things are shifting and changing going forward. What's going on in the stars to make, you know, support all of this? Can you just give us like a little taste?
Well, what we just talked about, the Jupiter, the Pluto, and the Saturn together in Capricorn, is a really big part of it, because just they all travel at different speeds. Let's say Jupiter is the fastest moving. It's just over 1 year per sign, meaning 12 years for the whole zodiac. Saturn, we mentioned this earlier, it's much slower. It's about a 29-year cycle. So you can just see with those two, even if you're not really good at math, it takes about 35 years for them to kind of fall in sync again. Pluto is one of the slowest moving planets in the sky. It's really far away. It takes 248 years to go all the way around. So for it to sync up with one of those planets can take a really long time. Jupiter and Pluto haven't synced up in Capricorn since right before the American Revolution. 1771 was the last time those two were together. And, you know, I think we can see certain parallels between that time and this time. It's before the revolution. It was when ideas were fomenting. People were rebelling but they were also very idealistic. How do we create a more perfect union? So even out of the chaos and the toppling, Jupiter is always saying, but wait, this could be good. This could be great, you guys. We could expand and we could grow, and it's philosophical, and we could turn it into something we really want. Now Saturn is in there going, I don't know. It just looks really grim. Saturn is kind of, and sorry for all really strong Saturn people that are listening, but it's kind of the pessimist of the zodiac. Now they think of themselves as realists, but those of us with strong Jupiters are like, it doesn't have to be bad. Pluto comes in and it just transforms. It's neutral. It doesn't have a rooting interest. It's just like, that's a mess. That's not working. That could go. And Pluto just comes in without really any regard for feelings. It's just, this is not working. Saturn comes in and says, oh, it's just terrible. We're all gonna get sick. We're gonna lose our jobs. And Jupiter comes in and goes, no, look. We've got to go through a transition to get to the other side. Just look at a baby. Baby does great in utero, but if the baby's gonna come in the world, it's gotta come through this birth canal, and it's gotta go through, these developmental processes to become what it is. And I think of us as being in that time. We are in a time of creating. Anybody, and Michelle, you know this, and I'm sure you've gotten very similar information from other realms. Nobody knows we're creating this together. This isn't a movie that you can look up the last line of the script and see how it ends. We're all writing the script together with our attitudes, with our beliefs, and with our actions. These planets, now Pluto will stay here for a couple more years because it is the slowest moving. Jupiter and Saturn, which were together, this was in January when they lined up. And Mercury got in there, and the sun, and I mean, it was such a lineup of planets that it was just like an explosion, and nobody knew what was up. And we've all been trying to figure it out since then and act appropriately. And nobody even really agrees on what is appropriate. We're still making this up. Saturn, structure, organization. Nobody knows. And now the planets are backward. Jupiter and Saturn are going to come together again this December of 2020. This is going to be an echo of what we experienced in January. Now, the interesting thing about when planets move forward and then retrograde and move forward again is if we're paying attention, we can learn from the experience. If we go numb and if we just, I'm not looking, I'm just gonna, drink or watch Netflix or wake me up in 2021, that's not going to help. There's no growth for the individual or collectively. Now, this is where it gets interesting. When they come back together again, to me, it's another opportunity for us individually in our lives, collectively as humanity, to make some new changes. Is it our country versus that country? Is it my state versus that state? That isn't going to work anymore. Divisiveness won't help us. So at the very, very, very end of this year, into the very, very beginning of 2020, right between Christmas, New Year's, and the first couple of days of January, Saturn and Jupiter line up. Well, they line up in December, and then they move into the next sign of Aquarius. Aquarius is the sign of humanity. It's global. It's not about us versus them. It's really this awareness of we're truly all in this together. It's very idealistic. It's very humanitarian. It's very egalitarian. And so we really are at this crossroads of which road do we take? Do we go the negative, cling to the old, refuse to change and shift and evolve? And, suffer, I think, or evolve and go to the next level and see us as a global community. And that's the promise of Aquarius. Jupiter will stay there for a year. Saturn will stay there for 2.5 years. So it's a really, really big, exciting opportunity. So I'm not a doom and gloomer. I'm not a Pollyanna, and the script is being written.
Wow, I love that. And, it's like what the songs have been written about The dawning of the age of Aquarius. Nobody said it was going to be easy, right? Just like,
Nothing is easy. Nothing worthwhile is easy.
touche. So, was that what you got the download on, or is that still coming?
It's still coming.
Okay, because I want to make sure we have plenty of time to unpack. So, let me ask you this. How does astrology help us integrate the higher realms with our everyday life?
That's the name of the game, right? Right there. That's like, the reward for everything. So when I was thinking about it, astrology is not a modality that will get you to the higher realms. It's not like meditating or doing visioning work or working with your chakras or breath work, like shamanic or holotropic breath work or chanting or praying or plant medicine or any of those pathways that will give you the experience. But what astrology is so amazing at is some of the things that we were talking about before. It's like a GPS. It shows you, or the analogy I always use is it's like an MRI. You look at that and you get a real sense of where you're strong, where you might be blocked, where you have true gifts. And we all have gifts, but how do you use them rather than like go down the wrong path? Like people go, I've been doing, Zen Buddhism, for 15 years and I haven't gotten anywhere. And I look at them, I go, you should be out in nature. Why are you sitting on a cushion? You can't even move your fingers. Zen is too rigid for you. You should be flowing. You should be doing ecstatic dance. You see how people might have a better pathway to it, and you help them access those realms, and you support them in them, and you help them understand that when they do go to those places, that's the most blissful, ecstatic state that you can reach, right? And your audience knows this, this so well. It's really one of the most amazing experiences that we can have as human beings, is to drop the ego and drop that separate self, and to really not intellectually, just like viscerally, sense-wise, on every level. We connect with the divine, and when we have those moments, those transcendental moments, it's bliss. It's like people who have near-death experiences and they come back and they look around and go, I don't care if my house is dirty. I'm not going to fight with this person. You just get elevated because you've had this experience, and it's just very hard to be petty and small and ego-driven when you've experienced that kind of unconditional love and bliss. And of course, you just want more. It's like, I'll have more of that, please. But here's the thing. I don't think we incarnate. I don't think we go to all this trouble to be back there all the time. But I don't think we incarnate to get stuck here either. Because, when we're just too tunnel vision-y about our careers or our securities and our fear and our health, we kind of close off the access to those other dimensions. And astrology is a reminder that you can just go. You can just go. Take a little vacation, like for 5 minutes, for an hour, for a day. Go on a retreat. Work with a teacher. Do it repeatedly. Because when we start spending more time in those realms, and then we bring it back, and to bring it back to astrology, we look at our chart and go, aha, now how can I do my mission? Now how can I create more beautiful art that inspires more people, or help more people, or serve in whatever way it is? This is what it's about. This is a funny little story. For a while, I was really good at lucid dreaming. I just started doing it a lot, and it started happening, not quite on demand, but a lot. And I loved it because it's that same kind of other dimensional, blissful, fun, liberated feeling. And I would tell my main spiritual teacher about my experiences and how I would fly and go to these cool places and just meet these interesting people. And she said, that's great. You're getting good. Why don't you try doing some healing work? it was just such a game changer, because I realized this isn't just recreational. By accessing these realms, we become more masterful, and we really start to get, like, not just academically, but we really get how insignificant so much of the things that we complain about are. And we can look at our chart instead of going, oh man, if only I didn't have those parents, if only I didn't grow up there. We look at it and we go, wow, what a gift. That made me me. That led me to become this. And we just start to completely shift our perspective, because it's like when you're hiking up a mountain and you come to a little lookout and you go to your friend who lives there and knows that area, and you go, what an amazing view. And they say, let's get to the top. Wait till you see it from the summit. And that's what just keeps us wanting to access these other dimensions and not get stuck in our, our Saturn, or too much critical stuff, or too much fear in the chart, or too many limiting beliefs. By using the astrology and having these experiences, we activate our chart, we raise it up, and we potentiate all of those possibilities that exist. That was the download.
Oh, I love that. That was so good. Yeah, beautifully said. And I really got your passion there. And, this is with any practitioner, that's what I look for. It's like, is it somebody that's passionate about what they're doing? Because if you are, you're going to find those beautiful gems in the work that you do, and you definitely do find them in the astrology, and then make them available to the people that you read and work with. So thank you for sharing all that. That was yeah, that was really beautiful. I don't even want to break it down. Like, that was just awesome.
It's just so exciting to share this with people, because I feel like, especially this year more than ever, so many people really upbeat people, even people that have a lot of beautiful aspirations and have pretty good lives, and I'm talking to people all over the world all the time, and they're saying to me, I was doing okay for the first few months, and it's just still going on, and I'm just starting to get really tired or anxious. Like, we kind of don't always catch, like, with that low grade, if it's not like big and in our face. If it's just like low grade and chronic, we adapt, right? We all kind of adapt to the situation. But every now and then we just have these moments. I see this on Facebook a lot. Like, a lot of people are just posting, anybody else just like losing it right now? And I feel like the beauty of astrology is that we can just say, look, everything is a cycle. Everything ebbs and flows. Everything. Anybody who's ever lived through a war or a pandemic or, totalitarian governments or anything, countries that have just had unspeakable things happen, it ends. And there's always there's always a rebirth. And this is what astrology is all about: cycles of death and rebirth. And by death, it doesn't have to be literal death, right? It's just death of an old. It's just a cessation of a certain pattern. And being able to look at our chart and to just keep finding the inspiration and just saying, hey, and not just like, okay, there's light at the end of the tunnel, but to go back to our charts and say, I came in now voluntarily. Maybe not this ego, but the soul that is me, the soul that will always be me when I don't have this name and this identity and these eyes. I came in now for a reason, not for nothing. It's not an accident. Why? What is this time? What am I supposed to do? And for the people, whether or not they think of themselves as light workers, anybody who's trying to raise their vibration and help other people and just resist the negativity is a light worker. And the light can only shine, so cliche, but we can't even see the light without the dark. And so if we have such bleakness, such darkness, such fear, it's a time to shine our lights more brightly. And this is it's not quite this simple. We all have our individual storylines and pathways and missions to fulfill. But it's just really important to remember now, we're here now for a reason. And for some of us, there's a sense of what it is. And for others, there's absolutely no sense. And this is where the trust and the faith and the connection to the divine and the higher realms, whether we think of it as our higher selves or literally working and being in other dimensions, this is what keeps like recharging our batteries. Because if we stay down here, and you know this, Washayla, we stay down here, the gravitational pull is going to suck us in. It's more important than ever to keep reaching for these dimensions and to finding, true inspiration. And it doesn't come from this.
Absolutely. That is our gift of multidimensionality. And the more we raise our consciousness, our frequency, the more we get to experience in the body. So beautiful. And I think astrology is just one of those tools where we can get like how choosing this particular body at this particular time with this particular alignment gives me access to more of who I am.
And to ground it in this body. This body is not incidental to this existence. This is, another cliche, which I'm full of, is this is our soul's address, right? In this lifetime. We are here to embody this beautiful divine energy that we really can only access through other dimensions, and then to ground it here, and then to share it with the people, and the people who need it the most, we need to share it with the most.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for that. I want to make sure that we get to talk about your free gift. So you're offering an audio recording that helps you find the spiritual portals in your chart and in others. So tell us about that.
What I want to offer your beautiful audience is a lot more specific detail than we could get into now, because if I were to talk about the North Node in this sign, well, then the people with the North Node and the other 11 signs would tune out. We wouldn't be speaking to them. So this is an opportunity to go a little deeper. And what I'll do is give people access to free online chart software. It's not going to be me. You just go, you input your information. I'll explain it in the download that they get for free, and they call up their chart, and we'll show them what the North Node looks like and what the signs look like, so there won't be any guesswork. And then we'll talk about what it means in that particular sign. But even more importantly, now this is going to be dependent on if they know their birth time, and not everybody does, but if they do, it's very, very helpful, because that shows the distribution of the houses. The houses are the areas of life. And this is even more important because the nodes will stay in any given sign for a year and a half. That means you and everybody, a bit older and a bit younger will have the same node. But what house is it in? What area of life? And when you put these things together, you get a pretty interesting idea about what might really be a good way for you to go, especially if you're not too sure. And this will all be explained, and they'll be able to start a deeper dive. And then from there, they can even, Google more information about that. Or of course, they can always come for a reading.
Wonderful. Wow. Thank you so much for your generosity and for, sharing so much. I feel like I really learned more about what it is to explore the astrological chart, if I can spit that out. And then it's always a pleasure to talk to you, Suzanne, and learn about how you present the information, which I feel like is very unique to you. So thank you for being here today. Thank you for sharing with us. Do you have any last thoughts? Anything that we didn't talk about that you want to make sure you say?
I feel like we covered a lot of good ground. The thing about astrology is I've been studying it since 1983, and I will study it until I take my last breath. So it's infinite, you know, and I continue to learn about it. I learn from what some of the great teachers and people who've downloaded information have to share, but mostly I learn from my clients.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and
My friends.
you have a class, right, that people can sign up for, or is that coming?
That is coming in September, and
Yeah.
people can join if they're on Facebook. They can ask to join my group. It's a private group, but it's free. It's called Purpose Driven Astrology. There's always announcements there. They can also go to my website, and I think the link is right there on my page, right? They can just go to the link. They can sign up for the newsletter. It doesn't come that often. They're not going to be overwhelmed. And it's just astrological news, and it's always kind of fun. And that's where I'll be giving more information about the exact timing.
Wonderful. And Suzanne is an amazing writer, so you definitely do want to get on her newsletter, and you want to sign up for her free gift. And you know, it's always fun to read what you write, and you always have a unique perspective. So I really appreciate that about you. So with that, we're going to go ahead and end there. Thank you so much, Suzanne, for your generosity and for all of this wonderful information. I know the viewers are going to love it and love you. And everyone, be sure and go get that free gift. It's only available during this summit. So don't let that slip by, because you want to get in on that. And the reason, you know, the biggest reason that I do this work is because I know I want everyone to understand that we are a community, and you do not have to do this work alone. We are all ascending together. We are a community of light. And thank you for doing this work. Thank you for tuning in, and namaste.